Picture this. You're standing in a parking garage at 11 p.m., watching your fiancée walk into a hotel with another man. Your heart's pounding, your hands are shaking, and in that moment, you make a decision that changes everything. What happened next turned her into something I never expected, and 3 years later, she still hasn't stopped hunting me down. The lengths she went to find me will absolutely blow your mind. And the ending, guys, you're not ready for this. I'm Ethan, and this story is going to show you what happens when someone crosses the ultimate line, and you respond with the kind of self-respect that drives them completely insane. Stick around because this gets absolutely wild, and by the end, you'll understand why sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply vanish. 3 years ago, I was 29, engaged to Madison for 8 months, and thought I had my future locked down. Madison was the kind of woman that made other guys do double takes. Successful marketing director, gorgeous, the whole package. We'd been together 2 years, living in her downtown apartment, wedding planned for spring. But here's where the story really begins. 6 months before everything exploded, Madison started changing. Not gradually, dramatically. Work became her obsession. Late nights turned into weekend strategy sessions. Her phone transformed from a communication device into a classified document, face down, password protected, never more than arm's reach away. When I'd suggest dinner dates or weekend getaways, I'd get the same script. Babe, I'm swamped with this new client portfolio. Rain check? But here's what really got my attention. Her work wardrobe suddenly became nightclub appropriate. Shorter skirts, lower necklines, expensive perfume for Tuesday morning meetings. I'm not the paranoid type, but I'm not blind either. The red flags weren't subtle hints. They were neon billboards. She'd roll in at midnight claiming client dinners, but couldn't tell me what restaurant or what they discussed. Started working out obsessively, bought new lingerie, and somehow never had energy for anything involving me. The breaking point came on a Thursday in March. I'd planned the perfect surprise. Thai takeout from her favorite place, candles, wine, the full romantic setup. She walks in at 7 p.m., sees everything I've prepared, and instead of appreciation, I get irritation. Oh God, Ethan, I told you about that networking event tonight. I can't just skip it for takeout. The way she said, just takeout, like my effort was an inconvenience instead of a gesture. That's when something clicked. This wasn't about work. This was about her not wanting to be around me. While she was getting ready, I made a decision that would change everything. I went to her purse to grab some cash for tip money and found something that stopped me cold. A hotel keycard from the Grandview Hotel. Expensive place downtown, definitely not somewhere she'd mentioned going for work. The date on it? 2 days ago, when she'd claimed to be at a late strategy session. My hands actually started shaking. Not from anger, from clarity. Everything suddenly made perfect sense. The late nights, the new clothes, the phone obsession, the irritation with me. I put the keycard back exactly where I found it and watched her leave for her networking event, looking like she was headed to a date instead of a business function. But instead of following her or confronting her, I did something that probably saved my sanity. I called in sick the next day and drove 3 hours to clear my head. Ended up at this mountain diner called Murphy's, just needing space to think. That's where I met Trevor. Trevor was this weathered rancher type, probably mid-50s, sitting at the counter, reading a newspaper, and radiating the kind of calm that comes from surviving real adversity. We got to talking, and something about him made me feel like I could speak honestly for the first time in months. "You look like a man with something heavy on his mind," he said after I'd been staring at my coffee for 10 minutes. I found myself telling him everything. The changes in Madison, the hotel keycard, the feeling that my own fiancée was becoming a stranger. Trevor listened without judgment, occasionally nodding like he'd heard this story before. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked me dead in the eye and said something I'll never forget. "Son, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. But when they show you who they think you are, that's when you show them who you've become." He told me about his own divorce 15 years earlier. His ex-wife had been having an affair with his business partner, and he'd spent months trying to fight for the marriage and work things out. All it got him was more lies, more manipulation, and a deeper hole to dig out of. The difference between punishment and protection is intent, Trevor said. You're not trying to hurt her, you're trying to heal you, and sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is remove yourself from a toxic situation entirely. Before I left that diner, Trevor made me an offer that would change my life. He owned a 2,000-acre ranch about an hour deeper into the mountains, needed someone to manage bookings for hunting trips and maintain the property. Remote work-friendly, private cabin included, and a chance to rebuild my life surrounded by people who valued honesty. I drove back to the city with a plan forming. Not for revenge or confrontation, but for strategy. Madison had made her choices. Now it was time to make mine. Over the next 2 weeks, I became invisible in my own life. Every time Madison went on her work trips, I moved my belongings out piece by piece. Clothes, electronics, important documents, everything valuable disappeared while she was busy destroying our relationship. The beautiful thing? She was so caught up in her affair fog that she didn't notice her own fiancé systematically vanishing. She kept up the charade the entire time, coming home with elaborate stories about difficult clients and demanding presentations, making wedding plans over breakfast while probably texting her affair partner during dinner. The level of deception was actually impressive in its thoroughness. Then Madison announced a 3-day conference in Chicago. Perfect timing. While she was off playing corporate romance, I executed my final moves, packed everything else, arranged mail forwarding, and left something for her to find. The hotel key card placed next to a note that simply read, "I found what I was looking for. Enjoy the networking." 3 days later, I was gone. Not just from the apartment, from the entire state. New address, new phone number, new life. Madison came back from her conference to find empty closet space and complete silence. The mountains became my sanctuary in ways I never expected. Trevor's ranch was 2,000 acres of wilderness therapy, complete with a renovated cabin that had everything I needed. I was managing property bookings, handling maintenance, and getting paid to live in paradise, while my remote marketing clients never missed a beat. The first month was harder than I'd expected. Some nights I'd wake up wondering if I was the crazy one. The isolation, the complete life change, the refusal to engage with someone I'd once planned to marry. Was this healthy, or was this hiding? Learning to trust my instincts again took time. Madison had been so good at gaslighting, at making me question my perceptions, that even with clear evidence of her betrayal, part of me wondered if I was overreacting. But Trevor became the mentor I didn't know I needed. Every morning over coffee, he'd share wisdom that seemed purpose-built for my situation. "Betrayal doesn't break you, son," he'd say. "How you respond to it builds you." The mountain community helped heal that doubt through simple, consistent honesty. But Madison's reaction to my disappearance was intense. The phone calls started within hours of her return. 27 missed calls the first day, voicemails that went from confused to angry to desperate in record time. "Ethan, what's going on? Call me back." Evolved into, "This is insane, we need to talk," and finally, "Please, I don't understand what happened." When the calls didn't work, she got creative. Different numbers, messages through mutual friends, showing up at places she thought I might be. The desperation was actually concerning, like she'd never considered that actions have consequences. 3 months in, Trevor's ranch phone rang at 6 a.m. Madison had somehow tracked down the number and was claiming there was a family emergency that required my immediate attention. Trevor, bless him, handled it perfectly. "Ma'am, there's no emergency that wouldn't reach him through proper family channels. Don't call here again." Then he looked at me and said, "She's not trying to get you back. She's trying to get her control back. Remember that." Month 8 brought the private investigator. Trevor's security cameras caught a professional-looking woman asking questions in town, claiming to represent a law firm, inquiring about Ethan Mitchell for inheritance purposes. The local sheriff, who'd become a friend, ran the plates and confirmed what we suspected. Hired PI from Madison City. The sheriff, a wise man named Deputy Carson, had seen this pattern before. "Son, in 30 years of law enforcement, I've learned that people who respect boundaries don't need to be told where they are. The fact that she's hiring professionals to violate yours tells you everything about her character. By year 1, Madison had finally admitted the affair through a text to my old number. Not a full confession, just enough to seem honest while minimizing everything. I made a mistake with someone at work. It meant nothing, and it's over. Please come home so we can fix this. A mistake? 6 months of hotel visits and elaborate deception was a mistake? That message confirmed everything Trevor had told me about the difference between remorse and manipulation. Real accountability admits the full truth. This was damage control. I was thriving in ways I hadn't in years. Mountain life agreed with me. Best shape of my life, learning skills I never knew I wanted, building friendships based on mutual respect instead of convenience. The business side wasn't always smooth sailing. Learning ranch management, dealing with difficult hunting clients, figuring out remote work logistics in an area with spotty internet. But every challenge felt purposeful, unlike the emotional energy I'd wasted trying to decode Madison's behavior. At Murphy's Diner, the regular customers had basically adopted me. These were ranchers, small business owners, people who'd built their lives on handshake agreements and kept their word. When they heard my story, the validation was immediate. "That boy's got more sense than most men twice his age," said Frank, who'd been ranching for 40 years. "Too many fellas think they gotta fight for something that ain't worth keeping." But Madison wasn't done. Not even close. Year 2 brought escalation that bordered on obsessive. She'd found my business website. I'd started consulting for remote workers transitioning to mountain living and booked a fake consultation under her middle name, combined with her maiden name. Trevor spotted it during our weekly review. "This inquiry seems off," he said, showing me the request. Too detailed, too specific about Colorado mountain relocations, and filled with inside knowledge about my preferences that only someone close to me would know. That's when I realized Madison had graduated from desperate to dangerous. This wasn't about reconciliation anymore. This was about winning a game she'd created in her own mind, where my peace was the prize and my boundaries were just obstacles to overcome. Instead of engaging, I had Trevor respond professionally, explaining that services weren't available in her area and recommending other consultants. Clean, final, zero room for interpretation. Did that stop her? Not even slightly. The fake consultation was followed by more elaborate schemes. Fake social media profiles, reverse image searches on my business photos, attempts to trace my LLC registration. She'd basically made stalking me a part-time job. But here's what she didn't realize. While she was wasting years trying to recreate something she'd destroyed, I was building something better. Year 2 brought a promotion to regional manager for Trevor's expanding business, and more importantly, I met Emma. Emma was a wildlife photographer who'd come to the ranch for a project documenting mountain ecosystems. She was everything Madison wasn't: honest, independent, secure in herself, genuinely interested in building something together, rather than just enjoying the benefits of someone else's effort. Our first real conversation happened during a thunderstorm when she got caught on a trail and ended up spending the evening in the main cabin. While Madison had always needed to be the center of attention, Emma was perfectly content discussing the migration patterns of elk or debating the best camera settings for capturing sunrise over the peaks. "You seem like someone who's learned to appreciate simplicity," she said that night, and I realized she was right. The mountains had taught me to value authenticity over appearance, substance over drama. What I learned later was that Emma had her own story about boundaries. She'd walked away from a successful gallery career in New York when her business partner tried to take credit for her work and gaslight her about her own artistic vision. "I learned that protecting your integrity isn't selfish," she told me weeks later. "It's survival. Some people will try to convince you that your standards are too high, but that's usually because their character is too low." Trevor watched our relationship develop with the satisfaction of someone who'd called it from the beginning. The right person won't put you in a position where you have to choose between trusting them and trusting yourself, he told me. That girl trusts her own instincts, which means she'll respect yours. Emma knew my whole story. I'd learned the value of honesty, and her response was everything Madison's wouldn't have been. No jealousy, no demands for details, no attempts to contact Madison or get her side. Just support for the boundaries I'd learned to set and respect for the path that had led me to her. Meanwhile, Madison's corporate affair had imploded spectacularly. Through mutual connections, I learned that her affair partner was married, shocking absolutely no one, and his wife had discovered their arrangement through credit card statements showing repeated hotel charges. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Corporate investigation, Madison losing her position when HR discovered she'd been using company resources for personal trips, her reputation in professional circles completely destroyed. The universe has a funny way of handling people who build their happiness on other people's destruction. But instead of learning from the consequences, Madison doubled down on obsession. Emails to my work addresses, messages through professional platforms, even reaching out to my distant family members on social media, asking about my well-being and expressing concern about my sudden disappearance. Some nights I'd wake up wondering if I was the crazy one. The isolation, the complete life change, the refusal to engage with someone I'd once planned to marry. Was this healthy or was this hiding? But then I'd remember Trevor's words. The silence is deafening, but it's your silence. You earned it. Learning to trust my instincts again took months. Madison had been so good at gaslighting, at making me question my perceptions, that even with clear evidence of her betrayal, part of me wondered if I was overreacting. The mountain community helped heal that damage through simple, consistent honesty. Year 3 brought the encounter that would end everything. Emma and I were in Denver for a business conference, my first time back in the city since disappearing. We'd made it a long weekend, combining work with exploring the art district and planning our own future together. We're walking out of the hotel when I hear it. Ethan! Ethan, wait! I turn around and there she is. Madison, running across the street in heels and a business suit, looking exactly like the successful woman she'd always projected herself to be. Except now I could see what I'd missed before, the desperation beneath the polish, the frantic energy of someone who'd been running on empty for too long. I can't believe it's really you, she says, breathless and standing 3 feet away like she's afraid I'll disappear again. 3 years, Ethan. 3 years I've been trying to reach you. We need to talk. Emma steps closer, not possessive, just supportive. Madison notices immediately, her eyes narrowing as she processes what she's seeing. The reality that my life had continued, evolved, improved in her absence was clearly something she hadn't considered. Who's this? Madison asks, like she has any right to information about my life. This is Emma, my girlfriend, I say calmly. Madison, this is my ex-fiancée who I haven't spoken to in 3 years and don't plan to start now. Madison's face cycles through shock, hurt, anger, calculation, and finally that practiced sweetness she used to deploy when she wanted something. Ethan, please, just 5 minutes. There's so much I need to explain, so much you don't understand about what happened. And there it was, the classic cheater's playbook. Minimize the betrayal, claim misunderstanding, demand attention while offering no accountability. It was like watching someone perform a script I'd already read and rejected. There's nothing to explain, I replied. You cheated, I left. End of story. I've moved on, and you should too. But I was going to tell you everything, she insists, her voice getting higher and more desperate. It was a mistake. I was confused. He manipulated me into it. I've changed. I've grown. I know what I want now. Classic manipulation, blame shifting, minimizing, claiming growth without demonstrating it, and my personal favorite, the urgent need to explain something that happened 3 years ago but couldn't be explained when it was actually relevant. Emma touches my arm gently. We should go, she says quietly. Smart woman, she recognized the toxic dynamic immediately and wasn't interested in being part of Madison's drama. But Madison wasn't finished. Do you have any idea what you put me through? Disappearing like that? 3 years, Ethan. 3 years I've been trying to make this right. Don't you think I deserve a chance to explain? And that's when I delivered the line that ended everything. Madison, you had your chance to explain for 6 months while you were cheating. You chose deception then, and I chose self-respect. Those choices don't expire. Closure is something you give yourself, not something you get from others. The words hit her like a physical blow. For the first time in 3 years, she was forced to confront the reality that I didn't owe her anything. Not my time, not my attention, not my forgiveness, and definitely not my future. I took Emma's hand and started walking away. Madison called after us, something about unfinished business and not giving up, but her words just faded into city noise. I didn't look back, didn't engage, didn't give her the dramatic confrontation she was probably hoping for. That night, Emma and I talked about the encounter over dinner at a quiet restaurant overlooking the mountains. "Does this happen often?" she asked with a wry smile. "Ex-fiancés tracking you down across state lines?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. First time, hopefully the last. Madison never learned how to accept consequences. She spent 3 years trying to undo something instead of learning from it and moving forward. "Good thing you learned how to set boundaries," Emma said. A lot of guys would have felt obligated to give her that conversation, even after everything she put you through. She was absolutely right. The old me, the guy who'd accepted Madison's excuses and obvious lies and increasingly distant behavior, probably would have felt guilty for not giving her closure. But 3 years of living authentically had taught me something crucial. You don't owe explanations to people who betrayed your trust. 6 months later, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. Madison and some guy named Brandon, destination ceremony in Mexico. The invitation was addressed to both me and Emma, with a handwritten note: "I found my happiness. I hope you found yours." The audacity was absolutely breathtaking. Inviting your ex-fiancé and his girlfriend to watch you marry the rebound guy? Either Madison had achieved some impossible level of delusion, or this was one final attempt at control disguised as magnanimity. Emma found the whole thing hilarious. "Should we RSVP?" she joked. "I've never been to a wedding where the bride spent 3 years stalking one of the guests." We threw the invitation away and booked our own Mexico trip instead. A week in Tulum, where Emma shot incredible wildlife photography and I finally taught her to fly fish. It was everything Madison and I had never been. Peaceful, authentic, drama-free. That was a year ago. No more PI visits, no more fake consultation requests, no more desperate attempts at contact. Madison finally moved on, probably because she had new drama to focus on with Brandon. And honestly, I hope he's ready for the ride, because if Madison's patterns hold true, he's about to learn some interesting lessons about who he really married. Trevor called it perfectly from the beginning. The mountains don't lie to you, son. Neither should the people you love. Madison had chosen lies, manipulation, and betrayal. Emma chose honesty, respect, and genuine partnership. The contrast wasn't subtle. But here's the real lesson from this whole experience, and why I'm sharing it with you. When someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time. Don't wait for explanations that will never come. Don't give second chances to people who didn't value the first one. And definitely don't feel guilty for protecting your peace from people who destroyed it. The right person will never put you in a position where you have to choose between trusting them and trusting yourself. The right person won't need second chances because they'll value the first one. The right person won't make you question your worth because they'll add to it instead of subtracting from it. 3 years ago, discovering Madison's affair felt like the worst thing that could happen to me. Today, I know it was actually the best thing. It forced me to develop real standards, learn healthy boundaries, and discover what I actually deserved in a relationship. Madison probably tells people I was heartless for ghosting her. She probably claims I never gave her a chance to explain. She probably paints herself as the victim of my cruel decision to disappear without a word. And you know what? I'm completely fine with that narrative, because while she's telling stories about the past, I'm living a better story in the present. While she's explaining what went wrong, I'm building what's going right. Emma and I are talking about engagement now, not because we're trying to prove anything or recreate something that failed, but because we've built something worth celebrating. She knows my whole story, respects the boundaries I've learned to set, and brings her own strength to our relationship instead of expecting me to fill some void in her life. Sometimes people ask if I ever wonder what if about Madison. What if I'd stayed and worked things out? What if I'd given her that second chance she demanded? What if her claims about changing were real? The answer is simple. I don't wonder because I know. I know what happens when someone prioritizes their options over their commitments. I know what happens when someone chooses deception over communication. I know what happens when someone's love is conditional on having backup plans. Trevor's final piece of wisdom, delivered on my 3-year anniversary at the ranch, sums it up perfectly. Some folks think forgiveness means forgetting. But real forgiveness is remembering clearly and choosing your peace anyway. You didn't forgive her by taking her back. You forgave her by building something better. The mountains taught me that self-respect isn't about punishing others for their mistakes. It's about refusing to participate in your own disrespect. It's about choosing your well-being over someone else's convenience. It's about understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away and stay gone. Today, I wake up in a place where honesty is the default, where my word matters, where the people around me value integrity over convenience. Madison can keep her corporate drama, her pattern of betrayal, and her desperate attempts to rewrite history. I've got something better, a life built on truth. So to anyone dealing with betrayal, feeling guilty about setting boundaries, or wondering if they should give a cheater another chance, let me save you some time. Your self-respect is not negotiable. Your peace is not optional. Your standards are not suggestions. The right person won't put you in a position where you have to choose between trusting them and trusting your instincts. Don't let anyone convince you that their poor choices are your responsibility to fix. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for refusing to participate in your own disrespect. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply disappear. And sometimes the best way to win the game is to stop playing it entirely. If this story resonates with you, if you've been in a similar situation, or if you're trying to figure out your own boundaries, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and share your experience. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. And if this helped you see your situation more clearly, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Trevor always said, "The best revenge is a life well lived." And 3 years later, I can confirm he was absolutely right. Madison spent 3 years trying to recreate the past. I spent 3 years building a future. Guess which strategy worked out better? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Choose yourself, set your boundaries, and never apologize for protecting your peace. Trust me, the view from the mountains is worth it.